Hi everyone. So I'm going to try and talk a little slow so people can understand me. I'm Scottish, Glaswegian specific, so if I talk too fast, it might actually be a bit hard to understand me. But I'm going to go through how I magnetised my UCM army. A few people have asked me questions, and others have just generally asked how they would go about it. So before I begin, here's the tools I use. So this small screwdriver I would use just to go dig in. So like I say, this ferrum drone section here, I would just dig this in just to make the hole for the 1mm. From doing that, I would use this drill bit here. Yet again, all you need is your hand, and you can use that from this to create your 2mm. Also advise even using this just to create your guide hole if you're going to drill for the 5mm for the likes of, say, let's see, where is it? There's a good one. Here. That's a 5mm. So I've used this to start it off, this to create a bigger hole, make sure it's centred, and then just drilled in enough with a power drill. Don't need to put too much power in it, just lightly try and get it to the level. It's hard to do. You'll find that in some you've actually went a bit lower than planned, but I can also show you how to fill that in. Right, so first things first is working out how you're going to do your magnetisation, how you're going to get it working for you. Right, so for that I advise you start off with an APC. Now inside this is actually 4 or 5mm, so get low down, high up. Right, so from this I've set this up, so that's negative, that's positive. So whenever I'm building anything, I always go from here, take the top one off. I want it to have the same loop. So if it's going under, goes under. If it's going over, like onto a condor here, like these are attached to a condor, it always follows the same loop. It is hard to do, but a wee tip with that as well is that, as you can see, this is underneath, this is over. And I noticed all sorts is attached, but anyway, if you follow that loop, so you've got your over and under, and attach something. So I'm wanting that to attach to the top there. So I attach a magnet underneath, for example, and that forces it within the hole. You can then glue it down. Be careful, because at some points the glue will automatically superset and then the magnet's stuck. Whether it's upside down or not, I found a couple with reverse polarity and I had to fix them. There's one that is reverse polarity, which I'll go through later. If at any point you have problems with magnets getting stuck together, these are key. Quite literally just put this right in between the gap and snip it clear, and that'll break the link. Now, people said that it's once they're joined. No, you can use these to disconnect them. Right, so first things first, I started off with the APCs. As you can see, we've got one set up here. It's got magnets and different things, and then it's got that small magnet underneath. So here we have a condor that holds 2 APCs. It also has the wee section in the middle. Now I advise actually putting a smaller magnet on the side that you want to glue this down to, so that it goes into the hole, as you can see. And then there you go. It also gives it a biting point, so it's not going to disconnect easy. Right, so as shown, I went in the inside. Apologies, I'm going to need to sit this somewhere. Just set it in between my legs. Right. So APC, as I said, APCs were the first ones, so you're always following that same loop, that same cycle. They're all polarised the exact same way, so they always connect like this. Now I've set this way for a reason, that way I can use it for other units if I need them later on, like grizzlies or something, because these will be set up the exact same way as I would set up a grizzly, right? So these didn't need drilled, but other units did. And I've set it up with a small loop, just to give it a bit of a difference if I was to add other units to this condor later on. It's set up for it. I can't remember exactly what I set it up for, why I added on them, because it was just a straight connection like this for the APCs, but I extended it for some reason, which is drawing me a loop. So you always do that way. So I've set it up where that goes in the centre of the bit. I never glued these until after I was finished. The same with the other section. As I said, now I could have put one inside and then one underneath. If I'd done that, it would have been a constant pull between the bottom and the top. So to save that hassle, I just threw 4 5mm in. And if you want to attach it to, say for example, we have the albatross here, set up exact same way as the condor. Now if you want to set it up for the ferrum drone, you would want to put your magnet just here with your grips. Don't have them in the same way here, but it's set up for APCs, grizzlies and tanks. So here we go. I know it isn't exactly sitting straight, doesn't matter as long as it does the job. So that's set up to hold 6 APCs, right? So that's the APCs and the condors. Right, what next? Condors and I think it's rapier tanks they're called. So if you look, I've had to put a small magnet on this. Now these are just glued into position. I could have went through a lot of hassles, but it ultimately wasn't worth it. Now I've got one underneath, so I started off with the one underneath. Yet again, following the same loop as the APC to make sure they always connect. Right, and what I've had to do with this condor is make sure it's got a good bit of reach. That might have been one of the reasons I actually did that with the APC. It actually was. It was for these tanks like here, the Gladius, I'm sure. Right, so this just gives it a bit of loop, a bit of range. Apologies, I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I don't speak right. I know it doesn't sit exactly right, but they're in positions that they look as if they're going for a fight, okay? So that's the condor setup. Now, before I go into any other units, I'll go on to the flight stands. Now, here we have a flight stand set up with one 5mm magnet, right? So set that up with the 5mm magnet. Yet again, see this small one here? If you're very careful with your glue, now you need to make sure this is clipped flat. Now there'll be a wee bit of an edge. You can either file it down or just snip it. You put a tiny bit of glue on your flight stand and then hold that for a couple of seconds, right? Now that's just to hold it in place. Now I've got this special, and I highly advise if you're going to do this with the flight stands, getting one of these. Now this is a UV glue pen. How it works is you put the glue on. It's a liquid glue. It comes in very handy. See the likes it's what I used to make this ferrum drone section fold over. If you see, it looks slightly green. Now I put just enough and then use the UV to make sure it glued and connected. Now for the flight stands, as you can see, there's a lot underneath this just to make sure it connects it and keeps it connected. You'll understand later. Like if you've ever worked with magnets, if you've ever tried to keep magnets connected, you'll understand that things like this come in very handy. So that'll create full resin. I can show you. Now it looks clear, but then you put that on it and it goes green. Now there's all the resin that I've connected round, so I've connected it right round the magnet so that it's got a clearer connection. If you have problems later on, or like I say, if I have problems later on with anything that doesn't connect right, I'll just use this. Now you can pick them up on eBay. It's a UV glue pen, absolutely brilliant. Say for instance, if you have a breakage, like I play Aliens Gale Force 9, so the Xenotails are an absolute nightmare. This sort of resolves if there's any breakages or that, and it glues so solid, it's industrial cement basically. It's a hard plastic resin it forms into. Right, so I've went through the condors with the APCs and the rapier tank condors. Next would be the Wolf LAV, and I think it's called a Falcon. So there's your 2mm. These will just slot straight in. Yet again, when you're going through doing it, make sure if you want to keep the same loop, put a magnet on the other side, dink, like this. So that connects like that, to make sure it stays on the same side that you want it. You don't want to have to be digging out magnets later on, right? So how this was set up was, there's a magnet underneath. Now that's so that it connects to your flight stand, right? There's a magnet on top so that it connects to this front section, and then there's a magnet in the centre. Now from the magnet underneath, if you have a look, I've set this up with a magnet like this, so it just slits above, so that it looks as if it's going to make it be in attack mode when it lands. And then your Falcon just sits on top. Yet again, 5mm drill. As I said, bore your hole with a 1mm, use your drill bit for the 2mm, and that way you've got the hole flush and perfect. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of manual labour, and you're going to spend like 2 seconds using the drill for all the work you do, right? So and that connects to that. Sorry. Generally connects to that okay. There we go. Right, so that's your Falcon and Wolf LAV. Now you can do the same with the other ones. The Jackal, I think it's called. So they're set up for the other Ravens, which have also got magnetising on them. Yeah, again, same positions, exact same positions, drilled holes, and that connects as your troop transport. But you could take the troop transport section off and then connect it to your Jackal. As said, I've set these up exactly the same way as I did the Wolf LAV, so they've got double guns, so I can chop and change, I can swap. I've done that with a lot of units, as you can see with this Falcon. This Falcon can be a carrier or a troop transport. Like to have options. It also means I don't need to buy as much. I'm going to spend a lot as it is, but yeah. So that's that set up. You can even just, well, I was going to say while it's in storage, just set it up to carry it, but doesn't matter, as long as it does what you need, right? So that's a few units shown. Right, there's another one. Right, yeah, again, here's a different type of Falcon. Now this is, or Raven I should say, because it's exactly the same. I'll use it as a falcon as well. So it's set up with it, with that section, or I assume I'll use it as that. Exactly the same as how I've set up the Raven or Falcons, except this section connects on. Yeah, again, that will connect to a flight stand, the same as any other unit. It won't like to sit right because of the plastic, but there you go. I have 4 of them, so they can go over there. Right. Next, we have a Kodiak. So, how I set this guy up, right? Exactly the same as the APCs, except this was already pre-built, so I had to drill my hole, right? I then bored a hole inside the tail section. They do this before you glue it down. Be careful though, when you're working with something this small, you will stab yourself in the fingers if you're not careful. Done it a couple of times, a couple of cuts, but yeah, so I've put a small magnet in there. I then had to, I bored this section down, right? So I bored it down to make sure that it would sit flush. So that sits flush. And how I managed to glue that on is I put that magnet that's now on that onto this section and put a tiny bit of glue on this file down section, just so that it connects like that, right? Yeah, again, the same with the APC, so that it connects to vehicles. I've had to drill a hole. This also helps you when you're putting in turrets and stuff, because then you don't need to worry about negative magnetism. So I put that hole there, I put a 5mm in, and then I put a small magnet inside this. Sure, that's a 2mm, so that's automatically connected. I then glued another magnet onto this, right? So this section will turn. This is where it gets pretty difficult. Now I've had to trim this down, and what I did was quite literally put the tiniest bit of glue and then connected this tiny 1mm magnet to this section. So I then just put this bit on top. Exactly the same as what I did with this bit, as in it was connected to this. It was, the magnet was connected, and then a tiny bit of glue. Now it is awkward. You'll find that sometimes the connections cut out. Did exactly the same with this bit. So now we have a Kodiak or a Panda APC, or 2 of them. I know the bits are underneath. Right, so that's one more unit done. Next would be, I'll go on to my broadsword. How I did the broadsword. Right, and then how the condor was built. So, yeah, again, magnets underneath. Right, so this is so you give your constant loop. It's also because, see this front magnet, that's where the flight stand will connect when it's connected to the condor. Okay, so that it's stable. Right. So if you look, there's a small tiny magnet in here. Alright. Same with this section, small tiny magnet. And then I've put a magnet in here yet again, using this small screwdriver to the 1mm size. All I did was bore in the hole and then put inside. Now with the likes of this, I didn't bore in a hole, but I filed it down slightly to make sure it was kind of flush. So it doesn't sit exactly perfect, but I wasn't going for perfection, I was going for function. Right. Underneath, we have a magnet here. Yet again, we're following the same loop, so the magnet from underneath connect to there, will then connect to there, and then we have one on top, which is to make sure it gets a stable connection to your condor. I've had to do the same with this section, except I've had to put it higher. Same with your condor, I've had to increase the height so that it fits. But up here's fine. It's obviously because if you look at the height, there is a height difference between each section, so it won't connect right. Right? How I did the joints on this. Oh. Now if you look, I've got a small lip. What the hell did I drop there? Right. So I've got a small lip. So I started off. So this inside section here, now there would be nothing there. I started off with that section, right? Filed down this side and this side. Just enough. Now you need to file it down quite a bit. Now it's a lot smaller than what you get it as brand new, but that makes the perfect connection. So yet again, it's the same as when you're following your top down loop. This is a side to side loop. So because I've set these in first, once filed down, that would connect there no problem. Small bit of glue. Same with this section. Right. Could then do the same. So what I did was magnets attached, a small bit of glue on each side. So that's how I've got my stable connections for this, right? As shown, I've had to increase the size of this section and add a wee bit extra, whereas the top section doesn't need it. Now, the reason there's magnets on top and on bottom is to give it a constant connection. It's to get a stable connection when it's on flight stands. Right, so if the magnets were underneath, like so the way the APCs are done, it's not going to be a stable connection for a flight stand. Because the magnets aren't actually connecting, they're basically pulling towards each other. But with that connection, it's stable. Can then connect to a flight stand, no problem. And yeah, I noticed that just wobbled off. But the point was to show you that it's no very wobbly, that it's secure. Right, so let's put these over here. Right, so what do we have next? Seraphim bomber. Right, so there's your flight stand connection. Yet again, this is interchangeable parts. So here we go. So that means that the Seraphim can have both loadouts. Now you will find that it's going to be quite difficult to do the missiles. That's where I advise using this. Now if you have a look how I've set up the missiles, I sort of glued them onto one magnet. Right, so both missiles are glued onto a magnet. If you built this, you would know they sort of just glue onto the wee sections in between, right? Now the way I've set this up is I used the UV glue pen to make them solid on, right? And then, and yeah, be very careful. I went through my Seraphims, but I'll be able to cover that up later on. What I'll probably do is use this to cover it up. That's way it can take the paint. Magnets don't like paint as much. That's what I've done with one or two of the Wolf LAVs that I went too low on. But so there we go. So that's it, sitting with both loadouts. Ready to go. Right. Next, Archangels. Yet again, floor magnet for the flight stand. And this seems to not want to disconnect for some reason. Means something's happened. I'll need to fix that. Right, so I put a small magnet in here and then put a small magnet in this section. So the archangels are set up to be both classes. Then just standard sits in a flight stand, easy days. So that's how the archangels were done. Right. Here we have a howitzer or longbow. Now, I thought of a few ideas. I thought I could maybe do the same idea as what I did with the broadsword for these wee sections at the side, but they're too close to the magnet. It's too close, right? So I've set up a magnet in the top, right? So the reason there's a magnet set up in the top is yet again there's a small magnet in the bottom. Now that would be, I think it's a 2mm to a 1mm. This is just to make sure it's got magnetized connection. So I've got an archangel here, so I'll just use that as an example. So now that attacks, or should attach, I should say. If it's sitting in the right position, should attach no problem to a flight unit. I know it's going to move a little, but it won't move as much when it's attached to, say, one of these guys. Right? I haven't glued it down because these were the last units I've done, so I've set these up exactly the same, both sides. There's no magnet underneath, there's a magnet underneath on the frame, and then there's a magnet there. I could maybe get it working. I'd need to put a hole here, and then clip both these sections to put a, that looks like 2mm, so that would still fit in between that slot. But it's going to be very difficult with your over the top magnets, so I might not do that. It might not be worth doing. It might be best just leaving them the way they are. As they are, I can change them as I see fit, and they still connect. I know there'll be problems. I've got an APC, like problems with the paint work at these sections. It'll obviously wear off at points. Got an APC for AVP Produce where I didn't attach the turrets or that, and moving the sections, paints came off. I don't care about that as long as it does the functionality I'm looking for, right? What do we have next? Right. I'll do the vultures next. So, someone asked how I magnetised the turrets of the polecat. I didn't. Too small. There's no way to do it. So, here's how the vulture's built up. I'm going to need to put a phone in between my legs. So, yeah, again, same idea as how the Raven. You need to measure these out so that they fit. So that's the two troop transport sections. Here's the polecat buggies. Now, I put these bottom magnets here for a reason, because these can attach obviously to Ravens and different things as well, so that needs that that bottom connection, just so that you can put it on a flight stand, right? So, now you can't see the magnet in that. The magnet is underneath here, right? Right, so you can see it here. Now, because of how close this is to here, there's no way to magnetise this section. In order to magnetise this section, I would have to bypass the flight stand section. Yeah, again, as I said, I've got a small magnet underneath. That means that it can attach to this guy here, and then attach to a flight stand. Boom, done. Alright. Here we have the vulture. So the vulture's set up with 1.5mm on the inside. This is for your flight stand. Now you'll have a problem with your polecats. In order for this to connect, your polecats will need to actually get pushed out the road slightly, as I'll show you. Just slightly. Right. So that's how the pole kits, all the pole kits are done exactly the same way, the exact same position as the Wolf LEVs to make it easier. Right. And there's your troop transport section. So it's interchangeable parts. Get you more out of your army without having to buy as much, everything being so static. I hate limitations when it comes to my models. I like to do what I can to rectify that, and magnets are a good source of that. Now it won't connect very well. I'm actually thinking about just removing these centre sections. One bit already broken, one of the two, so it might be worth doing. Right, what's next? As you can see, this will just sit. And you can just set these cargo sections on there. Now the top sections on the magnetised, see, because they are so close to the other magnets, when they work, so these turrets don't move. No other section of this moves. You need to make a lot of compromises when you want to do this, so you need to think, how am I going to get this working, and compromise with different things, like having magnets shown at points, like on the rapier tanks, or your ferrum drone sections, right? So that's that done. Right, here we have radius tanks. Now, this, I had to pick this one up. Now, this one was actually a bit of a bloody nightmare. So I tried to glue this on, right? You have a wee look. The plastic was that thin that it actually just ripped through. So what I had to do was actually put a bit of plastic from one of the wee bags over the top of it, cement glue it, in order to get this small turret to fit, because there was a big bloody hole. Yeah, again, same as you did with the APC, bigger magnet in the bottom. Now the reason there's two on this is so that it's actually sitting flush for the flight stand sections if it's needed. This also connects to oh well, it does now. I was going to say it also connects to a ferrum drone, but it connects to a condor, right? Or it'll connect to the albatross. So here we've got the albatross, right? So these have been set up, but the turrets have been glued, but you can take them off. So there's one on the albatross. Two. I know it's not exactly one to sit right, but hey, I do my best. I'm not perfect at this. Right, so these were set up like that. Small one there to make sure it's got a stable connection to it, and it connects to another one there if it's needed for flight stand connections. That's why I set up that the way I set it up. Right, so I went through every unit except a Titania Condor. The tanks for it, I think they're Katanas, and the Ferrum drone. Long ass video, guys. I hope this helps some people, by the way. Right, so I didn't have a clue as I was building this what this was. I didn't realise that I was like, what the hell's this extra bit? Right. Yeah, again, done the exact same way. Now, I could have magnetised the tank top sections, but I didn't bother. I just sat them in a position. Right, so I might do that with another set. I plan on buying another two of the light armour packs. So that's set up. The Titania Condor's set up to carry these three tanks. So we have one. That's backwards. Two. Actually connect your ball back. Right. It wants to be super duper annoying to me tonight. While I'm making a video as well. Apologies for the blackness. I will be back in a minute. So that's set up with the 3 points, right? Now, the exact same 3 points are set up on the Eagle connection. So, let me set the phone in between my legs. Yet again, they need the top down section, so the reason there's a lower magnet, make sure I've got my connections right, plus that way that section, that middle one can connect to a flight stand. So here's where the Eagle, I know it doesn't look exactly perfect, but yet again you need to make compromises if you want it to have this functionality, but that means that I can swap in between it being a titanium condor, troop transport or vehicle transport to the Eagle gunship. Same as I've done with a lot of the other stuff, right? So I'll just put the wee tank sections back on. As said, that connects to a flight stand via the tank. And the same goes with the Eagle. So the Eagle's been set up with a small hole underneath. Oh, there's there. Okay. And for storage, it will just sit on top of the tanks. Like that. Right, and now we come on to... Well, I never really... I showed the Albatross. This Albatross has been set up for APCs and tanks. Not exactly perfect, but yet again I've went with top down magnetism. As shown with these two APCs here. So it's like this. So it can carry 6 APCs. I assume. If not, it could maybe... Nah, it would only carry 6. That would be the most this one's set up for. If I'm wrong about the Albatross, maybe leave me a comment. Fill me in. I'm new to the game, so this is me getting the army ready, magnetised and functional, right? So this was the Albatross, so you get your flight back exactly the same as I've done the other Condors with the 3 tanks. So say I've got 9 vehicles on this, they would connect to that section, and then the flight stand would connect to the lower unit, okay? Or at least that's the plan. I've tested it. It's not 100% stable. It fits, see the 3 tanks from the Titania Condor? They fitted it no problem, they'll sit perfect. But the likes of your Katanas, where are they? Oh, hell yeah. Long enough video as it is, your Katanas will not sit flush. Right. Last but not least, we have the Ferrum drone base. Now this was the hardest of them all. Set up with interchangeable parts, movable tank treads, your little turrets can move so you could fish your enemy. I bring you a hell of 8 rockets. One compromise I had to make before I go any further is, see this section, I thought of a few different ways that I could make this magnetised so that the ramp could move up and down. Isn't really possible. There's a lot of problems with trying to do that, and I thought about it for a long time, couple of days, right, and nah, it just wasn't worth doing. So I advise just halfway gluing that down and then throwing the half drone in. Now that's just so that, take these off for now, so that this section can connect. Now what I've had to do to make sure it's a stable connection, now I tested it in Albatross with the central strut, I already snapped one and had to fix it. It needs a reconnection underneath, right? So what I'll do is I'll start from the beginning with this, right? I'll break it apart. Right, so First things first, start at your bottom. Always start at the bottom, right, and work your way up. So you've got your tank tread sections. Yeah, again, I've put a lower down. This is to make sure that connections are stable, connections are correct as well. It makes it easier if you're dealing with a tiny bit of glue and having it attached to an APC and then just sitting it on top. Same as you would do with a flight stand, right? One in the centre there, so that it connects to a flight stand. I know that's a small, it won't balance it, right? So that's your treads. Next up, we've got your turrets. So I know there's a magnet there, I'll tell you the reason for that soon. Right, so you got your turrets. These are set up, just clipped a tiny bit off the end to make it flat so it wasn't rounded. Used the screwdriver to bore in slightly. Now be careful you don't go through. On one side I started going through slightly. Isn't really too noticeable looking at the camera, but at one side, yeah, there it's there. You can see that small gap. Right, so I accidentally looked through slightly. Did the plan on that, but it still worked. Yet again, seeing you're doing these magnetising, put a magnet underneath so that it pulls it into the hole. With these, you quite literally, I advise using a bigger magnet. Put the smaller on, make sure it's in the same polarity, height and that, and then just tiniest bit of glue and then sit that on top of your magnet like ink. I know that just connected there, but it won't do that when it's still to be magnetised. So you just sit it on top of your magnet, wait for the glue to set. Yeah, again, see if you have any issues where magnets are gluing together. Pull out your snips, put it right in between where the glue is, and clip it. I'll show you. Right, so this is what you'll do if a magnet gets connected. So it's going to be upward. So I'm right in between the gap and you just clip it. Right? So you see, I know it wasn't glued, but this is just an example to show you. Help you work through it. I worked this out while I was doing it. Trust me, I've thrown out a pile of glued magnets because I couldn't use them. But that'll do the trick for breaking them apart. Right. So next we have your flight sections. So you're going to need to trim these sections down. Yet again, these sections, put a magnet inside. Okay. Same as I did with the broadsword, except I used the special UV glue pen wherever I put it. It's there. This, to make sure I could decide where it goes. Right, so I had to trim it down on each side to make sure the magnet sat. I then used the glue pen and just put a wee bit there and a wee bit there. UV it. There you go, put the UV on, let it dry, pull it apart, and then put some more glue under there. Now you'll see I've got a bit of glue on these sections. You can just file them down, file any excess off, and I've still to do this with this, but yeah, just file that excess off, that way it sits at the same level, but make sure you don't mess with the connection. So that's set in a motion of turning, and that sits like that. Turn off the UV. Right. So the reason I put that there is to make sure that it will connect to the condor. Even though this condor's not set up for it, I've set up the drone, measuring as I went along. I set up the albatross first, realised that a ferrum drone could attach to it, and went, oh balls. So I need to get another albatross for that. But that's set up with a magnet there, and I had to put a magnet on the flight stand just so that it's no wobbly. Did the exact same with, where's the other section? This other section. Completely interchangeable. Folds round. Okay. Next we have your flight sections. Now, I said I would explain this magnet later. Now that magnet there this can fully fit in and go all the way down. So that's just to make sure that's connected, and dink. Same as I've done with the flight stand there, it's needed a magnet on the flight deck and a magnet underneath to make sure it's got that biting connection with what's underneath, right? So I've set this up with a small magnet underneath, so that'll connect to that other magnet, dink, and then it's got a magnet on top. I did the same with the other section. Now the other section I just threw magnets in. I forced them into the gap and then just super glued magnet underneath, right? So that's how your interchangeable and will work, and how it will have some force. So, oh, that doesn't want to pull out now, does it? It's because it's got that little magnet underneath, right? Trust me, when you're going for the flight section, you realise that you need that, like to get it to attach to an albatross, to get it to be solid, right? So I've done that with both of them, but I've also made it so that when it's up, and this magnet's there. Now, this was quite awkward to do. I suggest doing these sections first, right? Because then you can find your point on this, and then just bore a hole with this just sitting the way this is sitting. Dink, throw your magnet at it, and it'll fall within the hole. Pull the magnet back out, put a tiny bit of super glue there. Boom, that's you. That's how it's magnetised, right? Right, so your drone's exactly the same as any other unit. Follow your same loop. The hole is 2mm, so a 2mm magnet's what's been put in this, but I use the 5mm in the flight stands. It's a more secure connection, right? And if your wee magnet's on there, oh, that's the negative polarity one. Now I made a mistake with one of these and it ended up negative polarity, but that works perfect for this because that's the upside down from it. So you could display it with maybe I've made a mistake with this flight deck section. Nah, that should be fine. Maybe I've made a mistake with some of these units then. Oh, or maybe I didn't get the negative. Yeah, I've not got the negative polarity one yet, I don't think. So the negative polarity one should actually sit on the top. Nope. There we go. So that one ended up negative polarity, and that goes there. So it looks as though we've got a active flight deck, drones coming up, and the magnets here. Now, this is us coming to the end of the video. I've showed off everything I've done so far. Pretty much the same theories would follow with your APCs. Like, oh, I didn't show you how a condor would attach. So a condor would actually attach to your Kodiak. Because the trailers are set up that way, you could break them up. Or you could do it another way, so that could attach to and then you get your trailer section in the back. So that's the way you could set up the Panda APCs to attach to a condor. Maybe not the best condor for it, but they do attach okay. Not sure what else to say. I think I showed off everything. It's taken me, 50 minutes to do this video, so I appreciate anybody that's taken the time to actually come through all this time. Whether you've needed the help or not, I hope I've been helpful and been able to help anybody that's been asking. As I said, when you're doing any magnetisation, you have to make compromises, so yeah, but Anyway, thanks very much, and I hope everyone's having a great day. Peace out. Oh, peace out. Bye.